Today we're going to work together on making a Christmas wreath like this. Yours will be a little bit different. No two wreaths will be alike, but that's the beauty of it. Each one's going to be interesting and unique, so you can add bits and pieces as you like. Maybe have a look around the garden, see what you can find. Have the children help with foraging, find some interesting leaves, some berries. You can keep it natural if you like, or you can add some festive sparkle and cheer to make it look really Christmassy. I'm going to walk you through the materials that you'll need for the wreath, and I'll show you step by step what you need to do to make your wreaths. Above all, don't worry, there's no right and wrong in wreath making. Do it as you like. You can make it as full or as sparse, as minimal as you like, and I would love to see how you get on. Enjoy! I'm going to talk you through some of the equipment we'll be using for this wreath making project. So the first thing I've got here is a frame. It's a metal frame that's got a little bit of a curve to it, and that's going to give us a nice solid base for everything to sit on. It's possible to make your own frame, but that's a little bit too ambitious for the purpose of this exercise. So I've got a nice sturdy frame to hold everything in place. And then you'll need something to attach all of the greenery to the frame. So we've got some florist's wire here, and this can be used to wrap the bundles of greenery and to attach it to the frame. You can also get florist wire on a spool, which is quite useful for wreath making, but this does the job very well too. And if you want to, you can also use twine or string to wrap it around and make sure that everything holds securely. So those are the basics. To cut the greenery and to cut the wire, if you've got them, you can use pruning shears, secateurs, I guess these are called. These are useful to have, but if you don't have them, then you can use a pair of scissors. Pinch your children's scissors, but don't tell them. But yeah, this is all easy enough to cut just with regular scissors. Then we'll need a few decorative bits and pieces. You could simply use natural materials if you wanted to, but it's Christmas, so let's give it a little bit of festive bling with some baubles. You can use some little bunches of picks, some artificial berries. Those are an option too. And then the greenery. Now I'll just mention the greenery we're going to be using. So I've got some branches here. This is an offcut from a Christmas tree. So it's a more traditional type of Christmas conifer. But you can mix things up too, and it's really nice actually to have a mixture of different greenery. So I went on a little forage and found these nice branches from some kind of a fir tree. They've got a nice kind of slightly more grey-green colour and a different texture. And it's also nice that they're kind of quite fan-shaped and they lay flat. So these are going to be nice to use. This is a fun thing to do with your children. You can go on a neighbourhood forage and see what you can find. Holly, if it's got berries on it too, then so much the better. Obviously it's quite sharp, so you've got to be careful with this, but it does look lovely. Also I found still with leaves on, but without any spikes. There's a few rowan trees that still have berries on them too. I don't know how long this will last in a wreath, but we can try it, and you know, if things drop off, then oh well. It'll look good for a little while at least. You can always trim things off if they fade before you're done with the wreath. So we've got some coloured berries there. You can also look for some slightly less conventional things. I found these wonderful kind of purple looking berries. I have no idea what this bush is called, but it has quite nice waxy leaves, so they should last for a reasonable amount of time. They're not you know, as robust as the pine needles, but these have a lovely colour, and it's another natural material that we can include in the wreath. Pine cones, obviously, if you've got a pine tree nearby, then collecting pine cones is nice. Another thing I found which is fun to use is a bit of ivy. This can be very firmly stuck to fences and walls and so on, so it may be difficult to get off, but if you find a place where there's a lot of it growing, it might be hanging, some of the new stems may be hanging off, so it's easier to trim off. So before you get started on your wreath, you may want to take a little forage in your own garden or a neighbourhood walk with your children to see if there are any nice bits and pieces that you can find and include in your wreath. Right, so now let's start making the actual wreath. I've got my frame here. I'm going to keep it to hand just so I can test how things look size-wise, but we're not going to attach anything to it yet. So we're going to be working mainly with the greenery. So if you have that to hand, and I'm seeing this branch is very large, so really we only want quite small things. So with your secateurs, if you have them, or even with scissors, I can show you that things like this can be trimmed off with scissors. You take your scissors in there and give it a little wiggle, then you can trim off some branches quite easily using the scissors. And just to mention, down by the side of my table, I've actually got a big IKEA bag, so as things get cut off or break off, I can sweep any bits directly into that. Also, if you're working over carpet, it's a good idea to put some kind of protective cover down, because if you've got berries, they can drop down and you don't want to be treading them into the carpet, speaking from experience. Right, so to make our wreath, we're basically kind of making bunches of flowers from this greenery. So you'll choose some of your bigger bits. That's going to be a bit too big, so I can trim it off. And we'll want to get kind of a fan shape of these pine branches. Pine is some kind of conifer. Let's have maybe 3 of those. There's a slightly different type here. We can mix it up. 1 of those. So you can see it's not huge if we look at the size of it compared to the frame. So we want to have a couple of inches that we're going to wire to the actual wreath frame, and then we want it big enough so that it sticks off to the inside and to the outside, but not so it's kind of going too far away. So that's about the right size. Let's add some other interesting things to it. So I'll grab a bit of this, maybe a little fan here. Let's mix it up a little bit with a little bit of berries in here. It's kind of like making a pretty bunch of flowers, so we can put 1 of those stems in. And I'm gonna have a go with this holly. Now what I don't want is loads of spiky bits where my hand's gonna go. So I'm gonna trim the lower leaves off this. And I want it positioned so that the berries are going to be visible, so they need to be fairly close to the top of the bunch, because stuff down here is going to be covered up when we start layering our wreath. So if I have it like that or something, I can actually take off some of the top, and I'll take off. We've just got a little bit there. So there we go. There we've got our first bundle. And now we're going to take the wire and we're going to start wiring this together. There's bits of wire. So I'm going to bend my wire in half, pick this up and give it a nice squash. Put the wire over, and now I want to twist the ends together nice and tight. So twist, twist, twist. If the children are around, just be careful because the ends of the wire are very sharp and very pokey. So I've given it a bit of a twist on the back. Then I'm going to loop it back around to the front, squash everything together again and do the same thing. Give it a twist on the front, twist it all together, and then we can kind of tuck that in along the stems. And there you go, we've got our first bundle ready to go on our wreath, and we'll need at least 6 of these, I think, to cover a form of this size. So I'll carry on and make some more. Now, if you want to, if you've got a few different things going on with your berries, you could alternate. Let's say do one with red berries, one with purple, the next with red. So you can do a few different things. Just want to trim off the leaves where it's going to be wired into the bunch. So take off those bottom leaves. So we've got our first 2 bunches. Again, you can kind of try them for size, and when you're going to start wiring them on, the idea is to overlap so that you cover the stem of the previous bunch. So that is going to sit something like that there. You can start to get an idea of what your wreath is going to look like when it takes shape. So I'll just leave that placed there, and now I can carry on and make my next bunches. Okay, so now I've made 6 bundles of greenery, and it's time to wire them onto the wreath. So right now they're just placed on here to make sure that I've got enough. So this is kind of a dry run. You can place them onto your wreath form, make sure that they fill the wreath the way you want to. You can always add something, you can take it away at this stage. But now we're going to take them off and start actually wiring them onto the wreath form. So I've alternated mine, one with a holly berry and one without. So I'm just going to make sure that I kind of keep them in the same order when I start wiring them on. So let's start over here, and it can be just laid onto the wreath form, and we can use the same wire and do the same thing that we did before. Really, we're just going to put it over, make sure that this is sitting firmly inside. I'm going to go to the back and give it a nice good twist to hold that in place. Now you'll probably find that the wire isn't long enough to wrap back round to the front, so let's just leave it on the back here. We can just give it a good twist together, and we'll leave it alone because this can be later used. If there's something that's sticking off, it can be used to tuck things in. So we'll just leave it on the back there, and we're going to put another wire down near the bottom because we don't want this to be a pivot point, because these could then flap. Right now they can flap in and out. We want it to stay in place. So let's use another one to hold this in place. Just give it a bend over. There we go. Bring it around to the back of the wreath and give it a good twist to hold the ends in place. There we go, there's our first bit of greenery attached. At this stage, don't worry if it's kind of sticking off inside outside, but you just want to make sure that it's kind of centered along the frame. So let's grab the next bundle, and when you take the next bundle you want to make sure that it covers the stem and overlaps a decent amount to cover the previous one, and this will make it nice and full as well. And this is also the reason that we didn't want the berries and so on to be too close down to the stem, because they'd be covered up. So that's going to work. And get another wire. And this is nice and simple because the wire is pre-cut. You just take a piece, twist it, and then move on. There we go, one. Take another piece, get the rest of that bundle. Oops, try to kind of get it so it's more or less halfway. Cross them over. And give it a good twist. Now, if you want to, you can also use a little bit of twine to help things stay really tight. So let's have a go with that as well. That way we know everything is secure and held in place. Take a bit of this twine. Just a knot on the inside of the frame and hold it in place there. to give that a couple of loops. I don't need to tie it off or anything. I can leave it hanging there. And when I put the next bundle in, I'm just going to carry on wrapping, so it's giving it an extra layer of security to hold it in place. Right, let's take bundle number 3. And because I know I've got 6, I know this should be more or less halfway around the wreath. There we go. Put that in place. Okay, and with this final one, I'm going to want to shorten the end so it makes it easier to tuck in. So make sure I've got my wire there. So let's lift up that first bundle, tuck this one in under it. So it's overlapping the one we just put in. There we go. And this one's going to be just a little bit more fiddly to wire in because you need to get your hands inside, but that's okay. So poke the wire in. I've got my thumb in there holding the bundle down. Come round to the back, twist it in place. And move my fingers along. Just lift that out of the way. With something else. Cut some of that off. And I can just tie the twine off on the back. So I go under the wire and through the loop. Do that a couple of times and that'll hold the end nice and tight. You can give it a little bit of a shake now, make sure everything is secure, which it seems to be. Okay. If you want to make any adjustments, obviously you can. And then we're going to add a little bit of sparkle. Colour-wise, I noticed that I've got quite a lot of purple berries around this side, and there's some as well, but there's none over here. So I'm actually going to add a little in there. So I can grab a couple of these, take extra leaves off. Let's tuck them in here somewhere. There we go. And there, that's going to look nice. Now let's see if I've got a wire on the other side that I could tuck them into. Oh yes, I do. See, from where I was wrapping the wire before, I can just use that wire to hold those two stems and kind of tuck them into the frame. So that's going to help hold those extra bits in place. There we go, I like that. Okay, we've got a natural looking wreath here. Let's make it look a little more festive. So I've got some pine cones here that have been frosted just with some regular white primer paint. So I'm going to show you how to wire these. Again, it's very simple. If you take your florist's wire here, tuck it in a section that's a little open. Try and work it in nice and deep into the pine cone. Bring the two ends round so they overlap. I don't know if you can hear, there's some crows screaming outside. That's not going to help with my directions. There we go. So there's a pine cone that's wired and that's ready to insert into the wreath. And let's do that with the rest of them. So look.
I love decorating.
Good. Let's put our wire on here. See that? We can get the wire in. And then we're going to twist the ends together. Twist, 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 twist. There's a pine cone.
You done it all night, that one.
Oh, not all night, just now. Right, there we go. Now, why don't you show me with your finger, come here, where you think that this pine cone should go?
There.
There?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to put our ends together. We're going to find a gap in the wreath. There we go, and we want to poke it through so it actually goes through the frame and position it where we want it to go. There we go. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. Now what I want to do is split the wire so it goes on either side of a piece of the frame.
I've got two.
And then we can twist the ends of the wire together, and that's going to hold the pine cone in place. There we go, there's a pine cone. Right, and we've got some more pine cones. Where should the next one go?
There.
Right there. Well, I think what we want to do is spread them out so they're quite
Maybe
even.
there.
Okay, good thinking. Let's thread on some baubles. So we can put on one of these, one of your sparkly ones, glittery ones. That's a great idea. And let's mix them up. So we've got two big ones and let's put on one smaller one. Okay, you hold on to that one. That will go onto our next grouping. So we've got 3 baubles on there. And now we can just twist the wire together. Just got to be careful not to pull on the baubles because they can fall off their holders. So there we go, we've twisted them. So let's make a few bunches of these, and then we can thread them onto our wreath. We've got the shiny one. Which one don't we have? Yeah, we don't have a matte one.
What does that mean, matte?
Matte. Matte means not shiny. So you can see that these ones are shiny. You can see yourself in it.
Yeah.
Hello. And that is not so shiny, so we can't see ourselves in it. Give it a shake to make sure everything is in place. Yeah. Oh, another one that's kind of stuck out perhaps. Not too much. I can just tuck that in actually. In fact, maybe there's a wire. I can use that just to hold that in place. There. Things can either be tucked in, trimmed off. There we go. This is also a little bit sticking out here. So I'm going to take a look on the back for a wire. There's a loose wire that I can use to just hold anything that's a little bit straggly in place. There, okay, I'm happy with that.